Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
How's it going, Phil, and all of you guys listening out there in radio world? Good to be with you on another beautiful, well, I mean, it's always beautiful down here in Baja. How's it doing up in where you are, Phil?
Cold and rainy. It'll be that way for the next few months. You don't even have to ask anymore.
Well, I got blue skies and sunny. You don't have to ask here either.
Mike, I have some information that I want to briefly give. It is from our viewers, and it's regarding last week's conversation about the year 2025 and how some things have become obsolete. Yep. Well, a lot of people feel like we missed a lot of things, so I'm going to briefly just go over a list of things that people said have become obsolete or we don't do anymore.
Okay.
All right. And some of them are things we did say. So phone book, yellow pages, encyclopedia, typewriters, word processors, wristwatches, pagers, using a public telephone, rotary telephones, cursive writing, analog clocks, film cameras, looking up the spelling of words in the dictionary, carrying cash, headphones with cords. So thank you, everybody who gave their suggestions, and I agree with all of them.
Let me ask you a question, because maybe I've got like early onset dementia here or something, but pagers, I remember having one. Why did we need a pager? What was that for, Phil? I can't even remember anymore.
So there's two reasons, and I did both of them. Living in a city like Chicago, it became fashionable to carry a pager because either one, it looked like you carried on business, or it looked like you carried on a felonious business, like a drug dealer or something like that. So those who wanted to look like a drug dealer, they'd go to like the club with a pager on, and women would flock to them. Men would go to, like a nicer club where they're professionals, and he'd have the pager and he'd look like, hey, I'm somebody. People need to get in contact with me.
But how did it work? Didn't pagers have phone numbers attached to them?
Yes, phone numbers. They worked on landline phones. And then I had a job.
Why would you have a pager if you had a cell phone? Or do we not have cell phones?
We originally did not have cell phones. Cell phones intersected, and when they did, they were the ones that we talked about last week. They were the big ones on the on top of a car battery with a shoulder strap, and they didn't get much smaller for a long time.
So we had I'm just trying to understand.
And it was a monetary thing. It just cost a crazy amount of money. Remember, people used to get like $400 and $500 phone bills.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, people would call the pager number, and it would beep, and then you'd have a number to call back on, right? And then you'd go to a phone to call back the person. That was the reason for it.
It depends.
I mean, I sound like a kid down here. But
doctors used to have pagers where you'd call the number and then you had some choices. You'd punch a number and one would be call back immediately, call the hospital or whatever. Or whatever kind of job you had. You had particular ones. And like I had a job where I had a pager that literally had a keyboard on it. It was like a clamshell. And I would get paged, but I could reply back with like a little basic text to an email address. So they've evolved, and there's all different kind of pagers. There's not just one kind. I had pagers for a long time.
Now I might be living under a rock, but are they all gone? There's no pagers anymore, right?
Oh, there's absolutely pagers. They're very useful. Like I said, we used to get them when I worked in telecommunications. When I lived in Chicago, the company I worked for was the phone company. And on the weekends, some of us would get paid double overtime to just carry a pager. So if something went wrong, we'd have to come in. So we get paid for the day, regardless. But the reason we were able to not have to sit in our office was we'd have this pager. So we could carry on with our day. We get the page and then and it was a cheap way of contacting us because we were involved in redundancy. So if the phone system went down, we were supposed to make sure it was brought back up, and we were supposed to keep it from ever going down.
I mean, the last I ever heard of pagers is when they blew up all those people in Lebanon.
We don't use them as much, but there are definitely particular jobs and careers where pagers are part of the job. I don't know what they're for, but I see a lot of EMTs carrying them. So, Mike, I didn't mean to talk about this long because I have something I want to ask you about.
Okay.
You've mentioned a few times about how KTM might be going out of business and things are up in the air and everything. Would you go into a little more detail? And when I say I'm asking you, somebody asked me and I didn't really have answers for them. So I told them that I was going to ask you on the podcast. So I do know that Kate is owned by like MotoGP or something like that.
Well, no. KTM is really the parent company. So they're originally an Austrian company, and they manufacture a wide range of things. They own other companies, including Husqvarna, Gas. There's a bunch of other companies, and they're tied in with CF Moto in China. Produces a lot of their bikes. So it's a European company, but they make a lot of their like everybody else. A lot of the stuff is made in China. My bike, as an example, the 390 Adventure is made in India. So that's a separate company that makes those. My understanding of their declaration of bankruptcy has to do with the European entity. And they have announced that they're going to continue operations. They're going to continue manufacturing motorcycles, et cetera, et cetera. They have already divested in a few of their smaller brands, and they've gotten out of some of the racing programs that they're in. So obviously they're cutting back on a bunch of stuff. But I think that the conversation is probably the more important conversation here is that they're not the only one. I've heard rumblings that Ducati, Harley Davidson, the other manufacturer of a lot of crossover stuff, quads and Can-Am that makes a bunch of the side-by-sides. Those, I think they declared bankruptcy as well, or they declared something. So this is a general problem that's going on in what I would call the toy, for lack of better words, it's the toy industry, right? So adult toys, This is true across the board, right? I mean, it's motorcycles, it's quads, it's boats, it's RVs, it's everything. We've talked about this on the podcast before. The economy is terrible, and a lot of people out there are hurting. So these are the things that look. So like my bike, as an example, I said is made in India. They're doing unbelievable in sales of that particular motorcycle. And the reason for that is that, in countries like India or here in Mexico, as an example, riding a motorcycle is normal practice, meaning like they can't afford regular big automobiles. Whereas in America, normal practice is to have, basically in America, the normal practice is to have an SUV, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very different environment. So in America, motorcycles and boats and quads and, all this other stuff, those are extra items, right? They're not your day-to-day. You don't need that for day-to-day living. So those industries are getting pounded. And, KTM is an example of that. In Europe in general is, we talked about, maybe we didn't talk about this, but, we talk a lot about the American economy being kind of in the crapper, but look at Canada and look at Europe. Canada is a disaster. They just yesterday, the prime minister resigned, right? Their dollar, I could tell you just from being down here in Mexico, there's a lot of Canadians. Their dollar isn't worth diddly shit. Canada is a disaster. So, and Europe to some extent has many of these problems ever since they tried to implement, the EU, and then England, one of the largest, countries, United Kingdom, backed out of that deal. So there's a lot of world economic issues that relate to all of this stuff.
So you mentioned Canada. That was the next thing I wanted to get into. I just want your opinion on this, Mike.
Yeah.
So we were both obviously keeping up with the presidential election here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say for at least a year, Trudau has been in the news at the same time. And he's been so rambunctious and just so animated and has an opinion on everything. And he gave off the impression that as long as they'd have him, he'd be around. So it's ironic to me that we're getting close to the day of Trump's election, and then all of a sudden he changes his whole tune and he's like, I'm out of here. What do you do? Well, there may be some very obvious reason that everybody knows, but I'm shocked.
Well, let's be honest. His popularity in Canada makes Kamala Harris seem like a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
He is not a popular guy, even in his own party.
Yeah, but Mike, he was still talking big until just last week.
He was. I think that the pressure's on from America. We sit here and we joke a lot about, we could get into this at greater length here, but all in the last week, Trump has had several press conferences. There's been other people that have gotten involved in some dialogue, and we've heard things like, Canada is going to be the 51st state, and we're going to take over Canada. We're going to take over Greenland. We're going to take over the Panama Canal. Blah blah blah. We're not. Hey, I heard today we're going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. But that's all different stuff. But Canada, the reality is, Canada does not. I'm going to get attacked. I know I'm going to get attacked. I know there's Canadians that listen to this. Canada does not exist without the U.S.
Well, Mike, I actually know personally some Canadians that watch the show, and they've said that.
Well, it doesn't.
So they're in agreement. I don't think they're going to jump on you.
They don't have enough. Look, they don't have enough population base. They don't have enough industry nationwide, and they don't have. And by the way, a lot of their industry and manufacturing comes to America, right? So without the U.S. buying the stuff, that it's not going anywhere. So the Trudeau thing has some of it has to do with some mistakes that he's made over the course of his administration, but more recently, when Trump got elected, he went down to Florida. All of those things. To be honest, he just started looking weaker and weaker. Like, oh man, my big boss just south of the border just is coming back. Well, I got to do something. And he just doesn't have the support of anybody anymore, I think is the big thing. And the more that Trump threatens to, quote, take over Canada, the more that I think the administration, Trudeau's administration, and those up north that are in the know, and they hear about these tariffs, they know that they have to kind of do whatever we tell them. They can't afford a 25% tariff. They're screwed.
So if I had asked this question to myself, that's the answer that I would have given. Is that after all is said and done, we pull the strings.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And, I think the thought of taking over Canada and making it a state is not going to happen. I mean, it's just pie. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure it's pie in the sky, because I'm not sure that Canada has any interest in that. I'm not not even sure America has any interest in that. I'm not sure anybody has any interest in that really, but I understand we sit around and we joke that Trump is joking about this. He's not really joking. He's threatening in a way. He's maneuvering chess pieces.
I don't know if he's joking or not, but I know he's discussing something that I've wondered why it hasn't come up before. And he's still not hitting it dead on. Canada is one of the most oil-rich countries in the whole world. And most of it is not being touched or used.
That's right.
Yet, they are the only country I never hear in all of these disruptions and wars and conflicts or anything. So on one side, they need us to protect them because if we weren't contiguous to them, they would have been invaded a long time ago for their resources.
That's right. And based on Trump's isolationist policy, he's basically saying, look, we spend billions and billions of dollars protecting Canada. We want more out of it. And that's where this pressure point's happening right now is that we're pushing back and going, hey, look, we're spending billions of dollars keeping you guys alive. We want better border security. We want better deals. We want, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what this is about. So I get that. And, look, Trudeau couldn't be any more different than Trump if he tried, right? I mean, he comes from a left-wing party that has ideology that's significantly different than the Trump policy. So I would expect, this is my prediction, I would expect that Canada is going to elect a conservative person that's more in line with Trump.
I would like to see Canada. Now, this might be the controversial thing. I would like to see Canada become, I can't think of the either part of the United States or become a U.S. territory. And just like the other ones, you govern and you do everything independently. But when it comes down to military and resources and everything, we're one.
I mean, let's be honest.
And I think that benefits both of us.
Who knows? Possibly, but like, look, Canada has never ever been able to even unify the country as a whole because the province of Quebec has never been on board with most of the rest of Canada. So, I mean, they've effectively had a non-violent civil war going on for like the last 100 years.
Yeah, they still think they France.
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't see that really. I mean, the U.S. is just another party to that. If you asked me if I thought that we have a chance of buying, quote, Greenland, I'd say you get a better chance that we're going to buy Greenland than we're going to have Canada become a territory.
Do you think, let's say America decided, that's the move, that's what we want to do. Do you think it would be hard? I think that most Canadians would be with it. The only ones who wouldn't would be immigrants because they have a large amount of immigrants in like Vancouver and Toronto and stuff like that. But they can't vote, so it wouldn't even, their opinion don't count.
I think I don't know. It would be tough to answer that. I certainly know some Canadians that I've talked to in the last little bit down here that would be a fan of joining the states, but but in fairness, these may not be your average, an average sampling of your average Canadian, because look, these are people that are living down here in Mexico or traveling down here or spending a lot of time here, so they may not be a realistic cross section of the country, and they're more open to different ideas, but. I don't know. I don't know. You see, here the thing is a lot of it is controlled by the French contingent in, and I don't know what, I suspect, look, they want to be independent altogether. I don't think they want to be part of the States or Canada. I could see them becoming a country and the rest of Canada being part of us.
I could see that too. So, Mike, let's move on to something else, because I read this, and this is something that we talk about all the time, about how they are slowly but surely trying to immobilize the citizens. They want us to stay put. They want us to get out of our vehicles and stay put and go to work. Mm-hmm. You may have heard about this already, but they have a congestion pricing plan now in New York. So basically, to cross the bridges to enter into the city, and the cost of parking fluctuates according to what time it is and how busy it is in the city. And I would love to know what you think about that.
Well, already been done in Europe. That policy is largely something that's being copied from Europe. And not to get political on it, but I think you've got a back. So we just watched a very contentious election that was front and center, right? And the policies were fighting on the main stage. I think more importantly is you have a situation going on right now where there is a lot of back room pushing and pulling from the two polar opposite directions, from the parties or the politicians or the people that control the strings here in the States. And I think that's one of them. So I'll give you an example. So, those are a cut to the chase. Those policies come from a left-leaning side. Because I think the right-leaning, because New York City, look, is a left-leaning area, right? So you're less likely to see those from a right-leaning side, because those are what I would call freedom. I don't want to say freedom of expression or freedom things, but anytime you put any kind of regulation on something, that typically right now in the United States, regulation comes from the left, right?
I don't think this is left or right, Mike.
I disagree.
I think it's rich, privileged people. Period. Now, in New York, there are more left-leaning rich people, but I believe all of the rich people, all the people in Central Park and all on that island, they want to price you out into coming onto their island. They want more freedom. They want to be able to come down from their high rises and walk into Central Park and not have to interact with a bunch of people from other states and cities and countries. They want they want their island back. It's as simple as, like, we all think the same way as these rich people in some kind of ways. It's just like your favorite club might cost $75 to get in, and you don't mind paying the $75 because it eliminates riffraff. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think this is.
I don't disagree. There's an element of that because, like, look, every community tries to do that stuff. It's like, putting up wind farms or solar panels. I mean, that's great as long as it's not in my community. Mm-hmm. You can drill oil, but, like, better be in Texas. It better not be near me. Everybody has that mentality to some extent, but I also think it has to do with they're trying to, like you said earlier, they're trying to get you out of your cars. They're trying to, they're portraying some of this as, environmental, global warming, pollution, blah, 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 goes on and on and on. So some of those policies are an attempt to do that. And that's why I suggest that it typically is more left leaning. But I don't disagree with you. I mean, some of that is certainly like, stay out of my community. I can see that. But
because this isn't the first time. When I was living there, it happened in a week. That's why you may never heard of it.
Yep.
They wanted to have like a fluctuation on the price of the bridge, the one near Edgewater. I can't think of the name of the bridge.
Yeah. Surge pricing, kind of.
Yeah. And So
It's like Uber works that way.
it would be free for me to leave the city. But
Yep.
if I left the city and spent all my money and was broke, I couldn't afford to come home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but how is it different than a policy? Look, Biden on his way out the door just tried to make, a 700 million square acres, miles, whatever of area not drillable in the water. Let's release some people from Guantanamo Bay right before we're about to get out. Let's try to get everybody that's on death row. Let's commute their sentences so that there's no death penalty. I mean, these are all. This is what I'm saying. There's a lot of behind the scenes pushing and pulling going on for policy. So some of that I'm throwing into this whole big pile of muck. And I'm not. And by the way, it's on the other side too. I mean, it's not just one side. They're both doing it. Oh, there's another one I just heard today about. The Biden administration, before they leave, is trying to change the rules on cigarettes and make them put a limit, which is, by the way, greatly less than what's in them today, of nicotine that's allowed in a cigarette. So fundamentally, if that passed, every single cigarette brand would have to change their formula. So, if you got a pack of Marlboro Reds as an example, and it's not going to be the same thing. It's going to be, it's going to be like, it's like getting Diet Coke. It's going to be Marlboro Super Light. But the argument, and this could be just a load of fucking bullshit. The argument from the other side, and by the way, I'm in support of that. Like, shit, I think they should, my gut feeling says ban cigarettes or even better yet, just charge, $300 tax on every pack. But the ironically, I'm not in line with what the people on the right. The people on the right are saying they're against this because, once again, this is another restriction on population. They're more of the Darwin thing. Look, if they want to smoke themselves to death, let them do it. Because their theory on this is that if we pass this law, it will give money and power to the cartels in Mexico, to the Chinese smugglers, to all these other things. Because all of a sudden, the black market for cigarettes will be huge because you won't be able to buy real cigarettes anymore. Now, conceivably, yeah, I suppose that's probably true. Right.
So there'll be like cigarettes that are like, remember when you couldn't get Cuban cigars?
Yes.
It's going to be
exactly the same thing. The same thing.
The irony of this. I remember going to other countries and just random people would walk up to me and be like, do you have American cigarettes?
Right. Oh yeah, I get that. I've got that in Africa. I've gotten that down. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, they ain't say hi or nothing.
Well, I tell you what, when I was traveling across Africa in 2001, when we did that Land Rover trip across Africa, we took with us a bunch of cartons of Marlboro Reds and Camel cigarettes. And they were actually worth more than either the dollar or the pound sterling for transactional purposes. Because look, on the bottom line is these people, their access to cigarettes over there was like, and you could tell, shit, you'd be in a room with them and they'd smoke whatever their local stuff was. It smelled like Camel shit. So it was just garbage, right?
But I don't know. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean they would kill for this stuff. So, I mean, yeah. So I guess this law would be turning America into that, where people that like legitimately have been smoking for the last 25 years of their life, they want their damn ass cigarettes. So what are they going to do? They're going to go and they're going to buy them illegally on the black market, which, by the way, was brought in by the cartel from Mexico, the same way fentanyl or marijuana or cocaine or anything else or trafficking, sex workers or whatever. It's the same concept, right? The cartel's right on that. I guarantee you, I read this news story today on CNN or somewhere. I guarantee you that down here, the cartel was reading the same damn article I was and be like, oh, well, God, I hope they pass that shit. But this is like big money we're going to be making. For real.
I agree, but I also believe that the legal cigarette companies will be involved too. Just like if you remember in Prohibition, those same liquor companies were making they were still making the liquor and shipping it to America and selling it. And I can think of countless other times that there's been some kind of tariff or prohibition or something, and a company works around it by exporting and importing it back. So I can.
Yeah, and the reality is, if you, you're right, Phil. And the reality is, if you know what the market is right now in cigarettes, the two major companies in the world, both of which are in the United States, most of their sales are actually overseas anyways. You know, because we've cracked down so much, and there's such a small population in America that smokes, that most, I mean, it doesn't affect the companies as much as it does the people. But look, I've said this a million times, and I know you most of the time agree, but I'm sure there's most of the people that are listening out there that don't side with my point of view, don't agree. But most policies that are trying to protect people or trying to help civilization, let's call it, particularly the ones that are put in by the United States, always hurt the people at the bottom the most. Period. End of story. All that shit that happened during COVID and all that, the free handouts and stuff, you know who hurt the most from that, and it still is hurting from it? The least wealthy people, the ones at the bottom.
And that's why I have no faith in government, no matter if you're left or right. Because like I consistently said, I think one person is better than the other, but I don't think they're much better. You're just going to get the same thing delivered a different way. Because just like with a good example is Trump. He was supposed to be so for the people, and his first big thing is he's talking about shipping in a bunch of immigrants, educated immigrants, to take over your job.
That's
and
right.
He's full blown for it.
Yep.
So he basically has already, that's his first trick that he did to his voters.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Against his party, by the way. I mean, the party was not for that. And you're right. It's the first thing he did that he said he wasn't going to do, basically. So the very first thing he did was the opposite of what he said he was going to do. So I agree with that. Look, people that are in power, their number one goal is to stay in power.
But I'm referencing that the move was something where it'll benefit people who got something, and it's going to hurt people who don't.
That's right. Agreed.
That's always the mentality. Nobody cares about the help. When people I would hate to be a server in a restaurant, because it's the same mentality. I'm here. I can afford to sit here and eat. So therefore, my service is nothing.
Right. That's a good interpretation there, Phil. I like that. But you're right. I mean, and that's kind of yeah.
So, Mike, I got to talk to Mo Leisure about this. You know Mo Leisure, right? With the Xterra. You know, Nissan, it's two things. Nissan has just now issued for a patent and trademark on the word Xterra, which I am shocked that they're just now doing.
Yep. Seems a little late in the game.
But it also coincides with something you've probably heard. So I want to get your opinion on this. You know, they're merging with Honda.
Well, they're trying to. Nissan's almost out of fucking business.
Yes.
I mean, they're in trouble. Let's forget about all the pictures you read in the paper and all the fluff. And
if you read the
if
paper,
you're a Nissan fan out there, Nissan's in big trouble.
Yes, but Honda does need Nissan.
Yep, agreed.
Because,
and it's, by the way, it's with Mitsubishi as well.
Well, that's like their little secret little ownership company. Yep. So it's really three companies.
Right.
They have to get together, bro. This BYD Chinese electric is changing everything economically for all the companies. Honda and Nissan and Mitsubishi, it's no way for them to survive unless they get together. And I still don't know if they can. They have technologies and things that I feel like they can overcome, but it's not easy.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like the time of the Japanese, particularly the Japanese automobile industry, is over.
It looks that way.
Yeah.
Toyota has been getting a lot of bad news lately. They have dropped a notch in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
They're
that's
not
what I'm saying.
even. I remember I could go anywhere in the world and see a Toyota if I didn't see anything else. That was. You're starting to see Chinese cars all over the world.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're here in Mexico, you definitely see Chinese cars. You definitely see Chinese bicycles, motorcycles. You definitely see stuff that you don't see in America, like Citroen and Peugeot and Fiat and all sorts of other brands. And I will tell you that Toyota's mistake, if you ask me what their mistake is, they're too high end. They're too expensive. So, they're not getting into these
not high
developing
end,
countries.
too expensive. They're not high end because matter of fact, that's one of the negatives about Toyotas. They're usually the last ones. They're like Apple. They're the last ones to add a technology that everybody else has had in their cars forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and a company like a startup like Tesla spanked the shit out of them. Even they've just declared their first sales decline. But but I think that's more about the electric problem than it is about Tesla probably as a company. I think the skids are on the electric car manufacturing to some extent.
So this leads me to something then, Mike.
Okay.
Trump's best friend right now is Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
All we've been talking about is drill, baby, drill, and fuck EVs and all of that and everything. But his best buddy and running the DOGE is Elon Musk. So do you think Trump is just going to turn his back on his right-hand man and turn this into a gas engine economy again? Or is he going to do things for Elon Musk? Is he going to help him with his company? Because in the back of my mind, every time I see them together, I'm like, they're not going to change anything. We're going to get more electric vehicles because his best buddy is Elon Musk.
Hard to say. I mean, between the two of them, you could honestly really say that Trump and Elon Musk are two of the most unpredictable human beings on earth, both of them. So, you could give me any kind of story at this point and I might believe it. I mean, how do you know that next year Elon Musk doesn't start up or starts making, gas powered cars? I don't know.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, shit, he might be making electric cars, but he's also making rockets that use like millions of gallons of fuel.
Well, I'm very open-minded in my thoughts about this. I see the contradiction in their relationship if Trump is really supposed to do all the things that he said. I see a serious conflict because
I'll tell you where
a lot of other things that he says he's going to do requires us to drill for gas, become a combustion engine world again. It's like little layers. It's almost like a domino effect. If we don't move forward with the gas, it changes a whole bunch of other things that he said.
Agreed. But the second biggest car company or second biggest electric car company is that Chinese company that you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So Trump could do both things at the same time. If he attacks China like he did the last time that he was in office, and he starts really pushing on their economy, that's going to help Musk's company because Tesla will do better, right? So I mean, he could do both things. It's possible he could do both things. He could push the fossil fuel, automotive industry at the same time of damaging China, which is really Tesla's biggest competitor, because none of these other companies make a shit. They don't do crap for electric cars. None of them, Toyota included.
Have you been in or experienced one of these Chinese vehicles yet?
No. I mean, I see them here on the streets in Mexico, not the electric ones, but there's plenty of, because I'll be walking down the street here and I'll be like, what in the shit is that car? And you look at it and it's like, this crazy names. They're Chinese.
Well, I didn't know until about 2 weeks ago that you could buy a BYD car here in America.
I didn't know that either.
I saw one driving down my street.
Really?
Yes. And it's
and
on.
What do they sell for? Listen, like what market is that?
Oh, I don't know. They don't live on my block. I saw one drive and I saw that BYD.
Yeah.
It was it.
But what I'm asking is, what price point are those at? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. Like I said, I thought that you couldn't buy them here, but I personally visually saw one. Maybe there's some special reason.
Yeah,
I thought you'd be telling me, because I don't know.
No, I mean, I don't see. I mean, unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately for me, but I'm down here in sunny Mexico, and we don't have, by and large, there's no electric cars down here because there's no electricity, or not enough electricity to have electric cars. I'm a good example of explaining to you, California, why it's not going to work in the United States. Because the reason that there's no electric cars down here in Mexico is because it's too far apart to drive from place to place. There's not enough power to charge them. There's not the power is. I mean, shit. The power goes out 4 times a week here in the town that I'm in, so it's just not reliable infrastructure, and that's why. I mean, there is one Tesla Cybertruck here in town. I've seen it. It's black wrapped. It's in town. Some guy, probably some wealthy, probably American, has it down here, and he's probably got a house and he charges it in his house or whatever. But I mean, it's a rare sight to see an electric vehicle down here. But and that's why when Californians sit around and say, well, we're going to make all the cars in America electric. That might work great in LA and San Francisco or San Diego, but it sure as hell is not going to do the guy good that lives in Kalispell, Montana, that's got to drive to Billings or something. It's just not realistic in a lot of America, even.
Yeah, so, I was about to say,
I'm on my electric car tangent again.
You could live in a major city in a high rise. Where are you charging your vehicle? Now, some of the more modern upscale high rises now, if you purchase a garage spot, you can have a charger installed. But if you live somewhere where they're willing to do that, you're in a whole nother tax bracket. So you don't even count.
Exactly. And that's my point. And that's also, by the way, another reason why you don't see electric vehicles down here, because they're expensive. And people down here, by and large, are not at the same economic level. So what do I see all the time? I see cheap Chinese cars, or quite frankly, beat up old American cars that have come down here. And that's what you're going to see. And that's not that much different than if you went out into the ranch country of Montana. I mean, right? I mean, that's what you're going to find.
Yeah,
people driving around in old pickup trucks.
Central Wyoming. There's a few places like that in America.
Absolutely. So and that's been my number one thing with the electric vehicle thing. We can beat this to death, but it's always been. It's another example of government policy that is against the people at the bottom, because they cannot afford currently the electric vehicles that are on the market. They can't even afford used electric vehicles on the market. And let's be honest, electric vehicles aren't really made and produced to be used. They have a lifespan that's much shorter than a combustion engine, really, in reality. And they're throwaway cars. I mean, at the end of the day, they're throwaway cars. When those batteries are no good anymore, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Here's something I never hear. There's a component of this economically that I hear nobody mention. The electricity ain't free.
Exactly. And by the way, it's not free even if you're not paying for it.
Right.
Right? If you're not paying for it, it doesn't, just because you don't pay for
if
something does not mean it's
you're
free.
paying for it.
You're paying for it. Exactly. Yeah. And then you go, God, why is each one of my eggs $4? Right. Oh, because you're paying for it. That's why. That's why, guys. Yeah. You're always paying for it.
You know how they do it here in Washington? They always add it to liquor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go buy a bottle of good whiskey you can buy a decent bottle of whiskey for $50, $60, right? And then the tax is like $17.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
The hell?
Yeah. Yeah. Back east, we call that sin tax.
But look,
it's sin tax, right? It's taxes on drinking, smoking, and whatever. That's not good.
Ask for your receipt, and it'll be one line item for what you purchased, and it's like 4 line items for all the different taxes.
Yep. Yeah, it's insane.
Mike, I should have started the show with this. Have to give some information about the national parks.
Okay.
Because this is a big deal. We talked about cameras and stuff and social media. In a big win for filmmakers, a provision in the Explore Act passed by the Senate and headed for President Biden eliminates the need for photographers and videographers to secure permits to film, even for commercial purposes in national parks. This comes just a week after a lawsuit challenging the National Park Service's ban on commercial photography in the parks and was filed by the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expressions, a conservative-leaning group.
And hopefully this is the last time we have to hear about this, because we've been down this road like 4 times already over the last 10 years. And let's get back to what you and I have said before. The national parks and the national land are owned and should be open to everybody, every citizen of the United States. And if you want to take pictures of the beauty and take videos of it to show other people, yeah, you should be able to, regardless of whether you're making money on it or not. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
Well, as long as you are not stepping on my ability to enjoy the national park, if you're not impeding me from being able to do the things that you should be able to do in a national park, I don't care what you do.
Right. Yeah. Yes, obviously, to a point. I'm assuming that you're not taking your camera and your camera crew and taking rope and cordoning off, Old Faithful, so we can't go see it because you're doing some filming. Obviously, that's different. But I mean, for a while there, I can tell you, as a YouTuber myself, I was a little nervous to film anything in a park for fear of, because I actually know, I'm not going to mention names, but I do know some people that actually got threatened and or sued by the U.S. government that are YouTubers, and so it makes you think for sure.
Yeah, and the stories that I've heard about that is they scare the hell out of you before they offer any kind of resolution other than going to jail or a $10,000 fine or something. They make you sweat.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All because they put up, a video on YouTube and they got, 5 million, views or something, and made, probably, who knows, they could have made $3,000 on the video as an example. We're not talking high finance here. Mm-hmm. And so for the government to, and if the government's going to sue you, you're not going to win, right? You're in trouble.
Right. And you were mentioning about maybe abuse of the law and production companies coming in and doing crazy things. According to Fire, as long as filming takes place where the public is already allowed, it doesn't harm or otherwise impact park resources or visitors, and involves fewer than 6 people, no permit will be necessary.
Perfect. And like anything else, if you've got a film team and you got to come in, I'm sure you can get a permit to close an area or whatever, and you pay a fee or whatever. I mean, that's all fine. I'm okay with any of that. But yeah, I'm a huge advocate for public access to these lands, and I'm against the fee structure thing too, because I'm still going to continue to talk about this fee shit that goes into place. I mean, and some of it seems stupid or negligible. Like this summer, I had to pay the $1, I think $1 to ride my motorcycle on the Going to the Sun Road. Well, I still don't agree with that. I know it's only $1, but we all own the damn park, right? And I might be able to afford the $1, but doesn't mean everybody can.
And I hate the word afford. I shouldn't have. That shouldn't be part of this. It's mine.
Oh,
it's mine.
Exactly.
That's like me buying a steak at a restaurant and wondering, can I afford it after I paid the bill?
Right.
Because I'm going to get another bill.
Yep. That's true. Yeah.
Mike, I got to get out of here. Is there anything you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I think as always, we rambled on about a bunch of stuff. So Mike, I hope you guys enjoyed it today.
All over the place.
Yeah, but that's our MO. That's okay.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.